Picture this. Somewhere on your phone, there's a forgotten contact. Maybe it's a person you met once at a conference, a friend of a friend at a party, someone you added after a group project and never spoke to again. You probably couldn't even describe what they're doing right now. But that person might be the reason you get your next job, or hear about your next big opportunity, or stumble into an idea that changes your life. Not your best friend, not your family, not your closest circle, a stranger you technically know. That's the wild claim behind one of the most quietly powerful papers in all of social science, The Strength of Weak Ties by Mark Granovetter. And once you see what it says about your relationships, you will never look at your social network the same way again. Before we dive into this, do me a quick favor. If you enjoy deep dives into game-changing research like this, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. It tells the algorithm this is worth sharing, and it helps us keep unpacking the papers that secretly rule how the world works. Alright, let's talk about why the people you barely know might matter more than the ones you love. Granovetter starts with a deceptively simple question. What does it actually mean for a tie between two people to be strong or weak? He doesn't romanticize it. He defines the strength of a tie as a combination of four things: the amount of time you spend together, the emotional intensity of the relationship, the intimacy or mutual confiding that happens between you, and the degree of reciprocal services you give each other. Strong ties are your best friends, your close family, the people you text every day and trust with your secrets. Weak ties are the people you recognize, maybe chat with sometimes, but don't deeply rely on. A coworker from another department. Someone you always nod to at the gym. That old classmate you haven't messaged in 3 years but still follow on Instagram. Now here's the key. Strong ties take time and emotional energy to maintain, so you can only have so many of them. Weak ties are cheap. You can maintain a huge number of loose connections. But the real twist isn't just that you have more of them. It's that weak ties connect you to parts of the social world your close friends simply can't reach. Your close friends tend to know each other. They form a tight cluster. You share the same group chats, the same memes, often the same opinions and information. That's comforting, but it means the information flowing around that group is often redundant. When one of them tells you about a job opening, chances are several others already know. Strong ties are great for support. They're terrible for novelty. Granovetter turns this intuition into a powerful hypothesis. The stronger the tie between two people, the larger the proportion of their friends that will overlap. Imagine you and your best friend. If we list all the people you're each close to, there will be a big overlap in the middle. But if we take you and a loose acquaintance, someone you only talk to occasionally, the overlap is much smaller. This means that when you connect with a weak tie, you're stepping onto a bridge that leads into a different cluster of people, experiences, and information. Granovetter calls particular weak ties that connect otherwise separate groups bridges, and they're the secret highways of social life. To show how strange this gets, he introduces a little triangle, a three-person network. Call the people A, B, and C. Suppose A has a strong tie to B, and B has a strong tie to C. You'd expect that A and C at least know each other, maybe as friends or acquaintances. Granovetter argues that a configuration where both A through B and B through C are strong ties, but A and C have no tie at all, is extremely rare, almost forbidden. Strong tie networks naturally close triangles like this. If your best friend and their best friend are both very close to you, you will almost certainly know each other too. That's the nature of intense relationships. They pull people into overlapping circles. But now think about a weak tie bridge. Suppose there's a person in one friend group who has just a casual, arm's-length connection to someone in a totally different group. They might not share any friends at all. That weak tie is crucial precisely because it does not close the triangle. It stretches across two clusters that would otherwise never interact. Break that tie, and suddenly those two parts of the network become isolated from each other. The beauty of Granovetter's argument is that it flips our intuition. Strong ties feel more important, but if you start erasing random weak ties, the whole network falls apart much faster than if you delete the same number of strong ones. Now that's all very abstract, so let's bring it down to something everyone cares about: getting a job. Granovetter studied people in a professional, technical, and managerial labor market, exactly the kinds of roles where information about opportunities moves through social networks. He asked people how they actually found the jobs they were currently in, not in theory, but in real life. Did they answer an ad, apply online, talk to a close friend? Over and over, people told him, "I heard about it from someone I knew, but not very well." When he dug deeper, he found that most of the useful job information came from contacts they saw only occasionally or rarely. These were not best friends. They were weak ties, old coworkers, former classmates, acquaintances met through previous jobs or social circles. Why would weak ties be better for finding jobs than strong ones? Because your close friends move in the same spaces you do. They know mostly what you already know. If there's a job opening in your immediate world, everyone in your circle hears about it at roughly the same time, and they may even be competing with you for it. But that acquaintance who works in another company, or even another industry, sits in a different cluster of the network. Their feed of opportunities is different from yours. A single casual conversation, or a tiny, "Hey, my company is hiring, you should apply," becomes a bridge to worlds your inner circle simply can't access. Granovetter doesn't stop at jobs. He zooms out and asks, how do ideas in general spread through a society? Think about rumors, innovations, political movements, new technologies, even fashion trends. You might think that if something starts in a highly cohesive group, say a very tight-knit community, it would spread quickly from there to everyone else. But actually, that group can become a cul-de-sac. The idea bounces around inside, reinforced again and again, but it doesn't go anywhere new unless there are weak ties reaching out to other groups. If all your contacts know each other, the information circulates intensely but locally. Weak ties are the exit ramps that let an idea escape its original cluster and travel through the broader network. He brings in the concept of local bridges to drive this home. A local bridge is a tie that connects two people who would otherwise be more than one step apart. If you remove that tie, they would need to go through others to reach each other, or they might not be connected at all. Weak ties are far more likely to be local bridges than strong ties. That means they're the shortest paths between distant parts of the network. If you care about how quickly something spreads, an innovation, a rumor, a piece of news, you care about these weak tie bridges. They dramatically lower the number of steps needed for information to travel from one region of the network to another. Now think about social change. A new idea, a protest movement, a political message, a piece of disruptive technology rarely succeeds just by saturating one tightly bonded group. It needs to jump across neighborhoods, professions, classes, and communities. Granovetter points out that many traditional diffusion studies miss this because they focus too much on individuals who were marginal or isolated weirdos. They thought innovators were people on the edges, cut off from the mainstream. But if you're too isolated, you can't spread anything. Nobody's listening. The real power lies with those who are embedded in one group but still maintain many weak ties outward. They're insiders with bridges. They can introduce something new to their own group and then let it cascade out through their loose connections. Granovetter also looks at community organization. Picture a city where every neighborhood is its own little island. Within each one, people know each other well, maybe even trust each other deeply. But between neighborhoods, nothing. No weak ties crossing boundaries. In that kind of world, it's incredibly hard to build citywide movements or work toward common goals. Leaders end up shouting into their own echo chamber. Granovetter argues that what really makes a community powerful isn't just strong internal bonds, but a healthy mesh of weak ties connecting different subgroups. That's how you get coordinated action on a large scale, through the ability to reach across boundaries. He goes even further, linking this to trust and leadership. It might seem intuitive that if you want to mobilize people, you focus on the densest, most cohesive groups. But there's a catch. When everyone knows everyone, the group can become suspicious of outsiders and closed to new information. Leaders in such groups might be trusted internally, but they have very little reach beyond their immediate circle. A leader with many weak ties, on the other hand, can talk to multiple groups, translate ideas between them, and pull them into joint action. Weak ties become the channels that make large-scale coordination and even social stability possible. One of the most striking things about this paper is how it connects the micro and the macro. At the micro level, we're talking about everyday choices: who you talk to, who you text back, who you grab coffee with. At the macro level, we're talking about the structure of whole communities, labor markets, and even social revolutions. Granovetter argues that you can't understand big social patterns without looking at these tiny individual ties. Weak ties are the mechanism that lets local actions accumulate into large-scale phenomena. Your casual acquaintance today might be part of the path that shapes an entire industry tomorrow. He also warns about what happens when weak ties are missing. Imagine a society where almost everyone's network is made up of a few very strong ties and almost no weak ones. People might feel safe and supported inside their little cluster, but they're cut off from new opportunities and ideas. Innovation slows down. Misunderstandings between groups grow larger. Prejudice and stereotypes thrive because there are no bridges allowing information, empathy, or experiences to cross between communities. In extreme cases, you don't just get fragmentation, you get polarization. Weak ties aren't just useful, they're protective. They keep the social fabric from tearing along its seams. At the end of the paper, Granovetter circles back to the big message. The personal experience of any one individual, what jobs they hear about, what ideas they encounter, what communities they feel part of, is closely bound up with the larger-scale pattern of social structure. We tend to tell stories about our lives as if they're driven by pure personal choice or pure luck. But when you zoom out, you see a network. You see clusters and bridges, strong bonds and faint threads. And you realize that the so-called random moments that change our lives, like a job found through a casual acquaintance, are not random at all. They are the predictable consequences of how our ties are arranged. So what does this mean for you, right now, watching this video? It doesn't mean you should abandon your close friends and chase shallow relationships. Strong ties matter deeply for emotional support, for identity, for resilience. What it does mean is this: don't underestimate the quiet power of your weak ties. Say yes to the coffee with an old colleague. Stay in loose touch with that former classmate. Join communities that connect you with people outside your usual circle. And when you're the one who sees an opportunity that might help someone you barely know, share it. In that moment, you become the bridge. You become the weak tie that turns into someone else's strongest break. If this breakdown of the strength of weak ties opened your eyes to how invisible connections shape your life, do me one last favor. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling us about a time a random connection changed your path. Your story might be the weak tie that inspires someone else. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.